We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Sunday. We're fully ensconced into the weekend. Not a lot of new news happening, but we've had a lot this past week and some things going on this weekend. So we have plenty to talk about. I've got some emails to check in with as well. Something I wanted to talk about, I did a TikTok about it yesterday, and it's something that's kind of annoying me. And it has to do with Democrats because I keep hearing from Democrats about this stuff. Um, it seems to me there is a certain faction of people out there that are constantly looking for something to worry about. You know, they worried about it when they told me Donald Trump was going to win in 2020. They told me how they were worried and how they were sure there was going to be a red wave in 2022. They swore that Donald Trump would not be indicted. They swore that he would not lose his lawsuit. And every time I was right. And it wasn't because I was any special genius. It was because instead of assuming the worst and using my emotions, I looked at the facts. The facts lay out what's going to happen. And if you can look at it without the emotions and out the fear that people seem to want to hold on to, it's really easy to see what the outcome is going to be. Now, people have been getting on me, and I'm going to talk about this in the first email too, about suggesting that I know Donald Trump will lose in November if he's even the candidate for the Republican Party. I'm convinced of it. I'm sure of it. And while I make a good argument for that, I've made that argument before here and on TikTok, so I won't do that again. But the argument is good. And if you look at it logically, you have to say I'm right. Again, not because I'm any genius, it's because I'm looking at the facts. So now I got people coming to me saying, oh, yeah, well, Mike Johnson and the Republicans in the House of the Representatives just won't certify Joe Biden if he wins the election. Where did you hear that? Well, it had to be coming out of a Republican mouth because it's absolute bullshit. Every time I say something's going to happen and then it happens, then they ramp it up and say, yeah, but this is going to happen. It seems like these people are set on having self-fulfilling prophecies that will never happen because they're so wrong. So where do they get this information? And I'll tell you where they get the information. They get it from Republicans. Republicans are masters of throwing things into the narrative and getting them to gain some traction. Maybe not to the level of being viral, but being out there. And then people start passing it around as if it's real. And then Democrats, who are prone to be fatalistic and want to see the darkness and not the light, say, yeah, that's what's going to happen. Let me explain to you about that concept. That concept that Mike Johnson and the Republicans in the House won't certify the election is stupid and it's bullshit. And I'll explain to you why. First of all, it's the vice president who signs off on the certification of the Electoral College. That is Kamala Harris. Now, if you're going to suggest that Mike Johnson or the Republicans in the House of Representatives is going to be able to do something to throw up a hurdle or a pitfall so that Kamala Harris can't do that, think about what you're saying. We're going to have a big election this year, and there's going to be a massive changeover in the House of Representatives. And from all evidence, it looks like the Democrats should easily take over control of the House of Representatives. Okay. So the new members of the House of Representatives is sworn in on January 3rd. And I don't know, I think it's the 6th this year too. I think it's always the 6th. And then the certification is the 6th. So my point is, if what I say is true and the Democrats take control of the House, Mike Johnson won't even be the Speaker of the fucking House. And the Republicans won't hold even a thin majority. The Democrats will hold it. So to suggest the Republicans and Mike Johnson are going to have some bearing on whether Joe Biden gets certified as president of the United States, it's absolutely ridiculous. Now, if any of you who thought that was the case sat back, looked at the facts, and thought about this, you'd realize, yeah, that's bullshit. But instead, there's people that want to believe the worst and they go, oh my God, never thought about that's right. Mike Johnson will fuck it up. No, Mike Johnson isn't going to do shit. Even if he was still Speaker of the House, he's proved to be a weak ass pussy who can be controlled by Joe Biden and the Democrats. But he's not going to be Speaker of the House, and the Republicans won't have the majority in the House. So chill the fuck out. Stop looking for something to be worried about or upset about. It's time to be confident and attack this thing knowing we're going to win. If you don't know we're going to win, then maybe you should just stand back and get out of the way while the rest of us go forward and finish this fucking thing. All right, that's my pet peeve for the day. Let's go to some emails. First one says, hi, Mike. And this kind of carries into what I was just talking about. Hi, Mike. You seem to be convinced that Biden will win in 2024. Well, that's only true if there's a massive turnout of voters, and I have yet to see any evidence of that. Really? You've seen no evidence of that? First of all, there's plenty of evidence that there's going to be a massive turnout. In 2020, there was a massive turnout. Joe Biden got more votes for president than any man in history by a long shot. 2022 was a midterm election, and that's typically pretty low turnout, but it had an unprecedented turnout in 2022. And the reason we had massive turnouts in 2020 and 22 is largely due to the fact that people are scared of Donald Trump. They don't want him back in power or anybody that's tied to him. That's why there was a massive turnout. So to suggest there's no evidence of a massive turnout, because there was one in 2020, there was one in 2022, and now in 2024, guess what? It's all about Donald Trump again. And that fear is not only just as bad, it's probably 10 times worse. So don't tell me there's no evidence of a massive turnout. I'll guarantee you there's going to be a massive turnout, just like there was in 2022 or 2020 presidential election. Now, I will give this person credit because he doesn't live in this country. He says, of course, living in Belgium bars me from taking the temperature in the USA, but no major news outlets report how many people are going to show up to vote. See, there's your problem. You're trusting major news outlets. These are the same people that tell you Donald Trump is leading in the polls when the polls are absolutely bullshit. I've told you a million times that the media isn't here to tell you the truth. It's here to whip up the excitement. They're building a professional prize fight. They want to make sure both sides are even so everybody stays glued to their TV screens. Here's the problem. You think what you think because you're getting it from the media. Don't do that. Read a little bit. Listen to the Rational Boomer podcast. If you don't want to do the reading, I'll do the reading and I'll tell you. He goes on to say, secondly, even if there is an all-time high quantity of voters, it comes down to the so-called swing states. And there, I don't know how many of them are ruled by Republicans. If there's one lesson to take away from the 2020 elections, is that Republicans are not afraid to rig the elections, e.g. the fake elector slates. Yeah, and how did that work in 2020 and in 2022? It didn't work. Here's another fact I will tell you that you don't hear on the media. In the last couple of primaries, they've taken many polls on who's going to win and that sort of stuff. But they also took another percentage. And that question was how many Republicans will refuse to vote for Donald Trump? They're just tired of the bullshit. They're not going to vote for him again. You know what that number is? 25% of all Republicans will not ever vote for Donald Trump again. So I ask you this question. If your party has 25% of the people that won't vote for you, How do you win a fucking election? And as far as rigging elections and cheating, a lot of that gerrymandering has been fixed. There's still plenty of gerrymandering, but that's the point. It goes back to what I said before. There's going to be a massive turnout. And there's only so much cheating you can do when there's a massive turnout. We saw it in 2020. They fucking tried, didn't they? Russia was in there. They did all kinds of things, but still, Joe Biden won. Then in 2022, with the midterms, they tried, but they fucking failed. You're getting all excited about something where there's no evidence that they're going to be successful with. You talk about evidence. When have they successfully um, cheated and won an election? Now, I know what you're going to say, and you may be right. We don't know that for sure. You're talking about 2016, but we're talking about a vastly different world in 2016 than we are in 2024. I've talked about this before. People want to compare. They say, well, I'm worried about 2024 because of what happened in 2016. You can't make that comparison. It's apples and oranges. And here's why. People were tired of establishment politics, and Hillary Clinton was the epitome of establishment politics, and they didn't like her in the first place. She wasn't a likable person at the time for a lot of folks. So they took a flyer on Donald Trump. They figured, how bad could it be? Well, it was bad. That was bad. And people learned a lesson because in 2020, he fucking lost. The difference between 2016 and 2024 is huge. Between 2016 and 2020, we found out who Donald Trump was, and they pushed back in 2020 and he lost. Between 2020 and 24, now we found out what he's done and how egregious it is, and the evidence is there. To make that comparison is just fucking silly. Final paragraph says, and as Michael Moore once said in a podcast, you can bet anything that the Republicans have always some sinister plan up their sleeves. Sure. They always do. They're doing it with trying to impeach Joe Biden, but how's that working? They fucking fail at every turn. Are there enough safeguards to ensure a really fair and free election? Hope you shine some light on these questions. All the best, Erwin from Belgium. Safeguards. Yeah, there's safeguards out there. But the bottom line is the biggest safeguard is us. To get out and vote, vote your conscience, vote your concerns, and vote if you support democracy or you don't support democracy. It comes down to that. It's simple as that. And at some point, or when you just gotta, you can't control everything. And this is what people do. They'll sit around, wring their hands, and clutch their pearls, being worried about things they can't control. All you can do is what you do. I can't change media. I can't change everything. All I can do is come here every day and do this podcast and try to get the word out to more people and do my TikToks and do the same thing. That's all I can do. And I'm going to do the best I can. And if everybody does something, we'll be fine. I think at this point, the Republicans and Donald Trump are far too gone. They're gone. Since 2020, they have nothing that's worked in their advantage. If they lost in 2020 and 2022, I just ask you a simple question. What have they done to improve their lot? What have they done? What have they accomplished to improve their support and their votes? One sure signal as to how they're doing is check their money situation. All the Republican states are going broke. The RNC has $8 million in its fucking war chest, while Democrats have $130 million. If that doesn't tell you something, I don't know what to tell you. Just sit back and worry until it happens, and I'll be right. Now, Erwin, I want you to understand, I'm not getting on your shit. You're a great listener, and I love your emails, and I appreciate the fact that you're in a different country. And you have a concern about what's going here. I appreciate that very much. And when I talk the way I talk, answering your questions, I'm not just going after you. Understand that. There's a lot of people who have those questions. And I get a little tired of it because it's like people are being lazy. Now, you live in a different country, so you have an excuse, but there are people that live in this country that are Democrats that have this fear constantly. And when things look good, they just go out looking for another thing to be afraid of. And that bothers me. So when I get a little worked up and I'm talking like this, or when I'm not getting after you and I'm not trying to insult you. The concepts that you're bringing up annoy me because they're pretty simple in my mind, and they'd be simple in anybody's mind if they sat down and took a look at it. What I do thank you for is Erwin is bringing these things up because these are all questions that Democrats have all the time and feelings they have, and they're here in this country. They could easily figure this out. So it gives me an opportunity to speak on it and let them know. So, Erwin, thank you very much. I hope you don't take offense to it, but this is who I am. All right. The next one says, "Hi, Boomer. I thoroughly enjoy listening to your podcast and appreciate hold on. I appreciate the hope I get from you and your guests. I apologize if this has been asked. I'm curious your take on Trump and the Alvin Bragg criminal case when you know he's going to appeal that ruling when he loses. I'm wondering how long that process would take, which could extend past the election. I'd like to think not, but with the way things have gone lately, who knows? I've read in rare cases it could somehow make it to SCOTUS, which would be a travesty, especially after the recent fiasco decision to hear the immunity case. Thank you for being you, Tracy. Well, here's the thing he will most certainly appeal it. He'll try, assuming he has any money. Got to remember, in the next couple of weeks, they're going to take away all his money and all his property. He's going to be in an entirely different situation. He isn't going to be able to afford loads and loads of lawyers because he won't have any money, and he'll have a lot of lawyers um, that won't work for him because of who he is and what he does. I fully expect to see him appeal, and I don't care if it goes past the election or not. The fact of the matter is if he loses, when he gets convicted in that case, that's all I care about. I don't care when he goes to jail. I don't care when he appeals it or what happens in that appeal. The fact is, between now and November, he will be running for president if he is the nominee as a convicted felon. He only stops being a convicted felon if he wins an appeal, which he certainly won't. But if it goes on past the election, it doesn't matter. Here's what you need to understand. The polls that we keep hearing about that say Donald Trump is ahead, those polls have also asked, what if Donald Trump gets convicted of a felony? Well, that changes everything. Now, instead of these polls going for Donald Trump, they go for Joe Biden. I don't care if he's in jail the moment he's convicted or not. He's going to have multiple convictions in this Alvin Bragg case. 34 felony charges against him. Alvin Bragg has 98% conviction rate. Let's say Alvin Bragg has a bad day and only gets 50%. That's 17 felony convictions. And that's a good number because that's what his company was convicted of, 17 felony charges. But he's going to have a lot to fucking appeal, and it's going to cost a lot of money and it's going to take a lot of time, but it doesn't matter because the damage has already been done. He is a convicted felon. That will affect his popularity and the people willing to support him. So I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about that in the least. Um, as long as we get a conviction before the election, that's all you got to worry about. Appeals and all that other shit, don't worry about it. He's not going to win the election anyway. And here's the thing you have to understand. Donald Trump wants to extend these past the election because in his sick, twisted mind, he thinks he's going to win the election. Well, he's not. Now, think about what's happened when the election's over. He loses in a landslide, and now he's got these cases. Donald Trump becomes immensely more vulnerable because he's got no protection. I'm running for president. I'm just a dumb fuck who lost the presidency, and now he's going to be destroyed. There's no way out of this for Donald Trump. There's no way out of it. He's done. And I don't know why people think he's going to rise from the ashes like a phoenix just because he says he is or because the Republicans say he is. Think about all the things they've said, and he's said it since 2020 or 2016 for that matter. All fucking lies. All lies. Why people insist on believing it. I mean, it's almost like if someone says it's strong, they must be serious. Don't do that. That's all he does, and he's always wrong. Anyway, Tracy, thank you for your comments. I appreciate them immensely. All right, the next one comes from Z Man. Hey, Boomer, this week has been crazy. This afternoon, Aileen Cannon deliberately gave Trump a kiss and a gift by telling the prosecution the July date is unrealistic. Nice, huh? He said to he was said to be smiling through the whole thing. This is ridiculous. If Smith lets this pass and this obvious collusion is allowed, then you know we have a mess and much to deal with. Your thoughts, Mike? I'm not even surprised anymore. Z-Man. Now don't write off Jack Smith. He's setting up the trap, and he's going. I think Aileen Cannon's going to be off this case. But think about this. You know, we got the immunity thing, and that's going to delay the case. And Florida may be delayed. And everybody's worried about the delay. It's going to be very close to the end of the election or the leading up to the election. And I heard somebody, George Conway, conservative pundit, formerly married to Kellyanne Conway, that stupid bitch. But he said something that really resonated with me that made some sense. And I guess I'm not so worried about the delays anymore. Again, he's going to lose, so it doesn't really matter if it goes out past the election. The only reason that is a factor is if Donald Trump wins, and that just can't happen. The numbers just don't add up. The situation just doesn't add up. But think about this. Let's say Aileen Cannon gives Donald Trump what he wants, and the case starts in August. That's what they wanted, August 12th. Well, they wanted never, but they said, oh, I'll go with August 12th. Say it goes for August 12th. Say it's a 2.5 month case. That's August, September, mid-October. Is that a bad thing? Is that a bad thing? Think about that. For the 2.5, 3 months prior to Election Day, Donald Trump is in court every day, acting like a fool. Evidence, damning evidence coming out every day. He can't go out and campaign. He's got to sit there every day because it's a criminal trial, so he must be in the courtroom. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. And what if the DC case goes later, like June or something? What if that happens? Instead of March, goes June. Okay, that's 2.5, 3 months. June, July, August. So now we got June, July, August, September, October into November. That's like 6 months. Donald Trump being in court every day, acting like a fool, talking crazy shit, and evidence being released every day. I don't think that's a bad plan. I think that might work. Take Donald Trump out of the equation. All he can do is talk at the breaks during court, but he's got to be there every day, and it's going to drive him fucking nuts. So don't worry about the delay so much. This may actually work out to our advantage. Take Donald Trump out of the game in August or June and force him to be in court all the time, and all the while being exposed for the asshole he is. Now, here's another thing you need to make a note of. We know how he behaved in civil court with going after judges, going after witnesses and the jury and all this sort of stuff. And he kept getting fined. We wondered why they wouldn't put him in jail. And that is an option, but it's a last ditch option in civil cases, because civil cases are about money. They're not about criminal things. What you need to understand is when he's in a criminal trial, if he does that same thing, the first go-to is jail. If he's in the Manhattan district and Juan Marchand is the judge, he's a pretty serious judge. If he starts doing the stuff he did with Judge Engeron, that motherfucker, the first thing he'll do is put that guy in jail. He's not going to sit there with Donald Trump talking like that in front of a jury. He's going to get him out of the courtroom, but he's not going to let him walk free. He's going to put him in jail. So everything that's going on with Aileen Cannon, I think she's going to be booted sometime soon. She's really pushed it to the edge. She seems to double down, and I don't think she's going to make it. And I think Jack Smith has planned all along that that was going to be the case. All right, the next one. Hi, Mike. Thanks again for all the good work you're doing. I heard you mention the Colorado primary election, so this is just a quick note to let you know that Colorado is a mail-in ballot state and has been for about 20 years. We're one of the few states where a majority of voters vote by mail or drop box prior to Election Day. Every resident receives a mail-in ballot about 3 weeks prior to the election day for Super Tuesday. Trump is on the ballot because the ballots were printed in early January. I saw it for myself because I'm an independent, so I received 2 ballots, one for each primary. I had my choice of primary ballot, and I voted in the Republican primary for Haley, which is simply an anti-Trump vote. I will vote for Biden in November. Our Secretary of State, Jenna Griswold, is a very vocal anti-Trump Democrat, but she couldn't wait for a SCOTUS decision before printing ballots. She had to include Trump on the ballot. I've included an article about this below. I'm sure Trump will win the primary here, but Haley will probably have a strong showing because there are so many independents voting in the open primary, as was the case in New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Michigan. I don't want anyone to think that there's a chance that Orange Mussolini won't be on the ballot here because he definitely and unfortunately is. Best regards, Vicky. Well, thank you very much, Vicky. I did not know that. It makes sense, though. I mean, we're talking Tuesday when the Colorado primary is, and they aren't printing the ballots 5 minutes before the election. So my question is, if he's already on the ballot, what's the point of the Supreme Court of coming down with this decision? The whole point of this decision is whether or not Donald Trump can be on the ballot. Why are they taking so long, and why are they even doing it? Because it's just about Colorado. It's not about the rest of the country. Now, it will affect the rest of the country, but it's not. It's about Colorado. This seems very strange. And Vicky, I appreciate you giving us a heads up on this. I did not know that. But so Donald Trump is on the ballot in Colorado, and the whole point of what the Supreme Court is doing is a fucking moot point. It's not really a moot point because if they vote or they come back and say he can be on the ballot or he should be off the ballot, if they do that Monday, who cares? It doesn't change anything. The votes are in and ballots are already out there. I don't understand the point, and I don't understand why the Supreme Court can't take this up a little quicker. This may be their strategy. Well, we're going to take a long time. He'll be on the ballot anyway. Then we won't get in as much trouble, because I don't think they're going to allow Donald Trump to be off the ballot in any state. I think they're going to sit back and wait to see what happens with the general election, and then they'll put it off till after the fact. Supreme Court is an absolute waste, and this is something we need to talk a lot about. The Supreme Court is absolutely criminal, absolutely corrupt, and that needs to be spoken all the time and as loud as possible. I mean, especially with this immunity case situation. This immunity case that they're waiting to decide on that one, they're going to hear it on April 22nd, and they're going to decide whether Donald Trump has immunity or not. There's absolutely no way the Supreme Court is going to say he has immunity. That's just crazy to even think about. But there's one part of it that is troubling. I'll bet you Clarence Thomas votes to give this guy immunity. And it's because he has a conflict of interest. Because what Donald Trump did on January 6th, one of his soldiers, one of his henchmen was Clarence Thomas's wife, Ginny Thomas. So for all intents and purposes, for legitimate reasons, Clarence Thomas should recuse himself, but he's not. And that's part and parcel to who Clarence Thomas is. He is probably the most corrupt of those people on the Supreme Court. And he wants to save his wife from uh, indictments and prosecution. Well, it's not going to work because there won't be enough people to vote to give Donald Trump immunity. It's just crazy. It'll cause a revolt against the Supreme Court, and it will create quite a mess. Immediately a mess because it immediately gives Joe Biden absolute immunity to do whatever he wants to fucking Donald Trump. So they're not going to give him immunity. They're going to try to delay this thing. They've proved who they were. They are who we thought they were. And what we have to do is push through, get to the election in November. And then as soon as we get out of there, we've got to figure a way to either expand the court or impeach some people or do something. Whatever our option is, we need to get on it right away because legitimate and credible Supreme Court is absolutely essential to democracy. All right, those are the emails. We'll take a quick break and we'll be right back. I've been saying for some time that I don't think Donald Trump will be the nominee. And I'm not saying that because I think he'll be in jail or I think that he'll realize the error of his ways or that the Republican Party will dump him. I don't think any of that's true. Why I think that is because we have a guy that's going to be 78 years old. He's not very healthy mentally, not very healthy physically, and he has the weight of 10 worlds on him. His financial world is coming crashing down within a couple of weeks. He's going to be going on trial in March for 34 criminal felony charges. He's got a lot going on and a lot of pressure hanging over his head. And I think for a normal young man, that would be too much to take. There'll be an emotional or physical or both breakdown. There will be an emotional or physical breakdown or a combination thereof. It's inevitable. You can't put that kind of pressure on somebody, even if they are mentally delusional. Eventually, it's going to come crashing home. And when it's going to come crashing home, first and foremost, is when they start liquidating his beloved properties. That's going to become all too real, all too quickly for Donald Trump. And that's where we're going to start to see the crash, if that is not the ultimate crash. So the question is, when are we going to start to see this wear and tear on Donald Trump? Well, it's already showing up. Donald Trump had several verbal slip ups at his rally in North Carolina on Saturday, prompting the internet to go wild. He's doing all the things that somebody with dementia will do. He'll create new words, he will slur, he will jumble words, simple words that he should know. It's much different than what we saw in 2016 and even 2020. Uh, it's taken its toll, and he's in trouble. Now, Trump delivered earmark or remarks at the Get Out the Vote rally in Greensboro, North Carolina, where he said President Joe Biden is the worst leader our nation has ever seen. I'd love to see the facts that back that up, but of course, Donald Trump is not big on facts. The former president also paused his speech for several minutes as an individual in the crowd suffered what appeared to be a heart attack. I like to say that's God's will. What stood out to some on the internet wasn't the medical emergency. Instead, it was the several instances in which the former reality TV star flubbed his lines, glitched, or otherwise slurred through his standard stump speech. I mean, this speech is no different than he always gives. It's all the same bullshit all the time. That's why people walk out halfway through the speech. They've heard it before 100 times. Now, in one instance, Trump was discussing the border when he said, "We call it a migrant crime," appearing to leave out the R out of crime. I came up with that name because I came up with a lot of good names. He's trying to cover his ass. Now, conservative columnist Tom Nichols said the people in Trump's audience mostly know he's beyond addled now. You can keep showing it to them, but they don't care because they think it'll be hilarious, lib-owned to put him back in the White House and hand him the codes to 1,500 nuclear weapons. Migrant Kime was a hell of an 80s cover band, said at JoJo from Jers wrote on social media. Social media is going crazy. What is Kime? Wrote musician Guitar Man in response to Trump's flub. A second viral moment was Trump attending to say Venezuela. However, he found himself completely unable to form the word. One Twitter poster said it was like a short circuit. Software engineer Andrew McCormick wrote in a response, it was a glitch in the Trump matrix. There's a lot of glitches there lately. Now, Trump also appeared to say media crews typed their lights off instead of turning them off. And he appeared to have trouble saying something while talking about Saudi Arabia and Russia. Once again, he doesn't complete the word that he's attempting. If you haven't seen the videos or the clips, you need to check it out. You can watch that and realize there's something serious going on there. He's having some serious problems, and it goes back to what I said before. You got a guy that's 78 years old or 77 years old, is unhealthy mentally and physically, and you heap the world of trouble on his shoulders. He's going to be broke, and that's his only identity that he touts, and he's probably going to get convicted of crimes. That's a lot to put on somebody. But somebody like Donald Trump, it's even more problematic. He's of an age where he's starting to lose some of his cognizance, and it's starting to show. And it's starting to show in a big way. And as the pressure gets worse and time goes on, Donald Trump is going to spiral. He's going to circle the toilet bowl. And this is why I think he may not even be in a position or up for the challenge of being the nominee, that even the Republicans will say, Jesus Christ, this guy's a mess. We can't put him up there. I made the joke on a TikTok. I said, if the Republicans keep propping this motherfucker up, they should have an investigation of abuse of a vulnerable adult, because that's what we're looking at here with Donald Trump. And so we're seeing some crazy shit. Now, he repeated false claims about the 2020 presidential race being rigged, a rigged election. Trump got to the meat and potatoes portion of his speech, blaming Joe Biden for the border crisis. Every day, Joe Biden is giving aid and comfort to the foreign enemies of the United States. He's actually giving aid, Trump said. Joe Biden tried to get a bill passed to shut down the border, at least temporarily. Donald Trump is the person that stopped that. He told the Republicans to not do it, and they obeyed like they always do. He went on to say, and they don't respect us anymore as a country. 3 years ago, we were more respected than ever before, and now they have no respect for us whatsoever. And Putin yesterday is talking about nuclear. Did you hear that, right? Nuclear? He wouldn't be talking about nuclear if I were here. He wouldn't be talking about it at all. He wouldn't have to, because you'd hand him the fucking keys to the country. Biden's conduct on our borders is, by any definition, a conspiracy to overthrow the United States of America. See what he's doing here? He's projecting anything he's being accused of. He tries to turn it around and put it on Joe Biden. Unfortunately, there's no evidence. There are no facts. It's a bunch of bluster and bullshit that Donald Trump is so well known for. You know, he talks about democracy. He's a danger to democracy. Again, Donald Trump projecting. He is, number one, he goes after his political opponent, Donald Trump. Well, you did commit a few crimes, and he's not going after you, the DOJ is. And he says, nobody's ever done this in this country. Well, nobody's ever tried to overthrow the country, a former president anyway. Nobody's ever done that. So there would have been no reason for anybody to do it. And then he says they do it in third world countries very well. They do it. He goes on to say that, but they're not going to succeed with us. They're not going to succeed. It's making us stronger. Really, is it? It's making us stronger. Biden and his accomplices want to collapse the American system, nullify the will of the actual American votes, and establish a new base of power that gives them control for generations. Isn't this the essence of what Donald Trump is trying to do? Be a dictator? It's all projection. It's all silly. And the fact that anybody would fall for it or buy into it is just unimaginable. How could somebody be that stupid? But still, there are plenty of people being stupid. Now, I get people coming to me all the time and say, well, there's a lot of people that'll vote for Trump. Yeah, maybe there is, but not enough. The only people that are siding with Donald Trump at this point are his base, and his base amounts to maybe 25, 30% maximum. So to suggest that the world is siding with Donald Trump and everybody hates Joe Biden, that's just a flat out lie. Now, that Trump's claim that Biden is persecuting him as a political opponent stems from, the cases against him. And again, had nothing to do with Joe Biden. It's the DOJ. And the fact of the matter is, he did commit these crimes. We see the evidence. So what are we supposed to do? I mean, he himself has said no one's above the law. So, Donnie, you're not president anymore. You're not going to get your immunity claim, and you need to go to jail because you broke a lot of crimes. And there's more that have yet to come out. Now, immigration took center stage this week as both Trump and Biden visited different border towns in Texas. Biden was criticized for choosing the town of Brownsville, which has seen far fewer migrants than Eagle Pass, where Trump was joined by Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Yeah, well, there were a lot of people who went down to Eagle Pass, and they were all excited. All these Trump-fucks went down there ready to fight, and guess what? Nobody showed. There was no big problem, and these clowns ended up barbecuing and fucking around. They didn't save anybody from anything because there was nothing to save. If you look at those two speeches, Donald Trump and Joe Biden, when they were at their respective border towns, Donald Trump looked like an absolute fucking fool. I mean, you couldn't even understand what he said. Joe Biden made some very cogent points. He said, we need more people on the border. That seems to be something that everybody agrees with, whether they be Republican or Democrat. But Donald Trump wanted to shut that down. He's talking about a crisis on the border, and he wants the crisis to continue just to try to make Joe Biden look bad. So if there are the amount of problems down on the border, Donald Trump doesn't care about the people that might be affected by it. He only cares for a political reason for it. And that should tell you a lot about Donald Trump. All right, former President Trump once again. Boy, this poor Lauren Boebert, she's got all kinds of problems, and this one pretty much ended it for her. Former President Donald Trump once again threw his support behind Republican Representative Lauren Boebert, whose 3-year tenure representing Coloradans has been marred by allegations of hypocrisy. She knew she couldn't win in the 3rd district of Colorado, so she moves. And now she's in the 4th district of Colorado. And it looks like her prospects are even worse. So she needs some kind of push. She needs some kind of boost. Let's have Donald Trump support her. Let's have Donald Trump endorse her. I don't know if Lauren Boebert paid attention in the 2022 election, but everybody Donald Trump endorsed in the 2022 election lost. Lauren Boebert has little, if any, chance to even being in the top 3 in her election coming up in November. Lauren Boebert is all but done. She's not going to get reelected. There's just no way. And Donald Trump giving her endorsement is just the last nail in the coffin. It's not going to help her. Not in Colorado, not in that district. Now, writing on his website, Truth Social, the former president called Boebert a proven conservative and effective leader and trusted America first fighter who has his complete and total endorsement. Yeah. The woman who, when she first got into office, helped with the insurrection. The woman who said some of the stupidest things in the history of Congress. The woman who was exposed for vaping and groping a man in a public theater. The woman who divorced her husband and was proceeded or it was proceeded for and afterwards a lot of violent activity and crazy acts. And then Lauren Boebert's son gets arrested for 22 felony charges. Yeah. Yeah. She seems like a hot prospect to represent a district. I'd want to sign her up first thing. Now, Boebert was first elected in 2020 to represent Colorado's 3rd congressional district, encompassing the west half of the state. She rose to the right wing fame by touting her love for guns and Trump's MAGA movement while capitalizing on conservative anger. Now, she won a narrow reelection in 2022. Boebert decided to run to represent the state's 4th district um, after that incumbent decided to bow out, tired of the shit. She's been trying to position herself in a little softer light in recent months, but honestly, Lauren, you've been there for 3 years and you've made a complete fool out of yourself. If you're trying to rehabilitate yourself, I'm sorry, that's not going to work. Last summer, set on her mission to impeach President Joe Biden, Boebert's tense relationship with fellow Trump Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene sparked an ugly scene on the House floor in which, of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene referred to Boebert as a little bitch. Now, you can fault Marjorie Taylor Greene for lack of, what's the word I'm looking for? I cannot think of it. I feel like Donald Trump here. I can't think of the word. The fact is, by calling Lauren Boebert a little bitch, at least you got to give her credit for knowing that that's a true statement. She is a little bitch. Now, then in September, Boebert suffered a spectacular fall from grace when she was forcibly removed from Beetlejuice, a play. It was caught on video kissing, groping, and vaping some guy who happened to be a fucking Democrat. And then she tried to, well, that'll teach you to date Democrats. Wow. Here's a woman going into a tailspin and will never find her fucking way out. Just will never find her way out. She's done. And thank God for that. I only hope that whoever takes her place isn't crazier. Keep your fingers crossed for a Democrat to win that district, but I wouldn't bet on it. I wouldn't bet on it. 3rd district, that Democrat that almost beat her last time may win that district, which would be a plus. Now, with the U.S. Supreme Court's decision to take up Donald Trump's claim that he is immune from prosecution for his coup attempt, the former president, Republican presidential nominee, likely, could be spending every weekday of the campaign's final month sitting in Washington, D.C. courtroom. Not only Washington, D.C., but maybe Florida. And who knows what's going to happen in Georgia. Instead of visiting key states like Michigan, Wisconsin, and Georgia, where his efforts to regain the White House will likely be decided, Trump might instead be sitting before U.S. District Court Judge Tanya Chutkin. And he'll be listening to his former aides, all the people that work for him, testifying against him about what a piece of shit he is. And this is what I was saying before. This delay may not be a bad thing. It may tie him up for 6 months leading up to the election, at least 3 months leading up to the election. And it's not going to be good for him because he's got to be in that room all day, every day, during every trial. He's got a little ADHD, he has trouble, he's fidgety. It reminds me, my granddaughter and I, she has a favorite video. She has a favorite video that we have to play. There's 2 videos. that we have to play. One is Wake Me Up Before You Go Go. She loves that song, and largely due to the fact that it's a very poppy, very hooky song. But in the first part of the song, it says, Jitterbug, Jitterbug. Junie and I and Grandma have changed that to Junebug. So she thinks it's a song about her. That's beside the point. That's not what I'm talking about here. But with Donald Trump and his inability to sit still, there's another video my granddaughter and I watch all the time. And I can't remember the band. It's a kids band, but it's called Shake Your Sillies Out. Shake your sillies out, raise your hands and do all that stuff. Donald Trump's going to have a lot of sillies to shake out. And somebody maybe want to send him that video where he can take a listen to it before the court so he can just sit and be an adult. I know that's a lot to ask and it's probably not going to happen, but what the fuck? You got to try something. Those are going to be long days for Donald Trump sitting still and without Diet Coke, as Ty Cobb mentioned. You're going to have the spectacle of his former officials, one after the other, day after day, testifying about what he did. And this comes from George Conway. Um, and he's the one that I got this whole concept from, that delaying it to the last months before the election may not be a bad thing. It may not be bad at all. I just feel that the thing is, it's in here. I mean, the deal is done. Donald Trump is going to go down hard. He's not going to win the election. He's going to get convicted of crimes. He's going to have all his money taken. With all those things inevitable, tell me, how does Donald Trump survive that? He can't. He can't fucking survive it. Now, here's an interesting story, and I've talked about it before. A lot of people are looking, those people that want to find things to worry about. They've been talking about this True Social thing and this merger that was upcoming maybe as soon as March 22nd. And then when that happens, Donald Trump will have all this money. Well, it won't work that way. He may have a lot of money that's available, but it'll take some time to get, and it won't be quick enough. But he's hoping against hope that he has this money through this merger. Some people say 4 billion. I doubt that. But presumably a lot of money. But there's one problem. Donald Trump's own ignorance and own greed may have fucked that up for him. A recent legal development in Trump world came and went in the mainstream media, but some legal experts say it needs more attention. Now, just the other day, Ross Story reported that co-founders of Donald Trump's media company accused the former president of scheming to lock them out of a stake in the company potentially worth millions of dollars. Trump Media and Technology Group, which owns Trump's Truth Social platform, is trying to merge with a special purpose acquisition company called Digital World Acquisition and go public. And then co-founders say they're being ripped off for their share of the proceeds. Sounds like a Donald Trump business, doesn't it? It might seem like a standard civil suit, but some experts have flagged the case for further attention. Now, keep in mind, Truth Social and digital marketing have had a lot of problems with the SEC. The fact that they're even going to be allowed to merge is kind of weird. The fact that this other company even wants to merge with Truth Social doesn't make any sense. And wouldn't be surprised if they back out, especially under the current situation. Because Donald Trump was trying to screw these poor guys out of 9%, even though he's got 91%, he's trying to screw them out of it. Donald Trump's not happy with having most of the money. He wants all the money. And when he does that, he fucks himself over. So now these guys are going to, this company was established in Delaware, and he goes to a Delaware chancery, and they want to shut down this merger. So you see where the problem is that if they shut down the merger, this money that Donald Trump is hoping against hope for won't be there. But there's more to the story that you need to know. Democratic political strategist Simon Rosenberg said on social media that it is a huge story, even more so than Donald Trump losing the money. It needs to be understood that Trump is being accused of having committed new crimes. These are crimes, not just unethical crimes. A massive new fraud by his fanboy business partners, he wrote. Former federal prosecutor Elizabeth de la Vega also chimed in. New crimes, new massive fraud for Trump, she wrote. Alex Wagner, host of Alex Wagner Tonight, also brought up the issue on her show on Friday in a written MSNBC post on Saturday. They claim Trump is essentially trying to cheat them out of their share of the company just as it's about to go public and potentially net billions of dollars for Trump if he can sell his shares. That's a big F, too. Who wants to buy the shares? It's one thing to have something worth something, but if nobody's willing to buy it, really ain't worth shit. But that's beside the point here. This lawsuit may shut that whole opportunity down. It's a Hail Mary by Donald Trump, but he may have fucked it up himself. It's what I keep telling you. Just let Donald Trump talk. Let him do what he does because he will fuck himself over every time. And in this situation, he is fucking himself over because he's a greedy son of a bitch. Not only that, he may have committed more fraud. And we may be looking at entirely new indictments after all these other indictments happen. He's a man who is on the hook for more than $500 million in judgments from both civil fraud and defamation lawsuits. Not everyone was on board with thinking that it was a big deal. Retired tax law specialist Bruce Duck asked De La Vega, "Where's the fraud?" He said, "This is a civil matter, and I hope Litinsky and Moss prevail, but I don't see anything in this that would get DOJ to indict anyone," he wrote. "Issuing additional stock doesn't violate any criminal statute." Simon Rosenberg is prone to histrionics. Yeah. Well, what he's trying to do is defraud these people. These people had rights to those those shares. Now, if he's trying to dilute the shares or try to expand the shares, then he should give these people more shares. That would make it fair. It would allow them to maintain their percentage of the company. But that's not what Donald Trump did. He tried to push them out. Now, whether that's illegal or not, I don't know for sure. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know anything about finance or anything like that. But the most important part of this is that it's going to throw a hitch into Donald Trump's plan to get this merger done and then ultimately get get some money, or at least a promise of money or hope for a money. But so here's the deal. Donald Trump could have had this thing done on the 22nd. I still don't think he would have ever gotten the money quick enough to do any good. But even if he could, now he won't be able to, because this is going to do exactly what Donald Trump does in everything. Throw some chaos and some confusion and some uncertainty in it, and it's going to slow everything down. Now, keep in mind, between E. Jean Carroll and the New York lawsuit, this is all happening in the next 2 to 3 weeks. A lot would have to happen if Donald Trump could garner $500 million from this deal, and he's just not going to. So he's going to go through some things. There is going to be some liquidation going on. There's going to be people going in, not him, selling off his shit and a fire sale. And Donald Trump, that is going to be a breaking point for Donald Trump, because Donald Trump's only identity is his wealth, his power, his property. When that's all taken away from him, what do you have left? You don't have much. And Donald Trump will know that as well. Keep in mind, he's immensely insecure. The only thing that kept him going was his money and his power. Take that away from him, then what happens? He becomes a big fucking puddle who's nothing more than a victim. He will spend the rest of his days as a victim, crying and whining about how he was cheated, how he was treated badly. And we can all sit back and laugh at this sorry fuck because he's got nowhere to go, no way to get the money. He's too old to build it back up, and he's too damaged. He will be a pariah in this country. And as a pariah, nobody will want to touch him. Keep in mind, all of his friends are testifying against him. So where are you going to go? Donald Trump had a Hail Mary pass available to him with this merger. Maybe he would have got enough money to maybe get a loan on, but he fucked that up simply out of his greed. He's got to have it all. He can't be fair about it. He can't be decent about it. It's just not in him to do that. So he fucks it up. And that's what I say, just let him talk, let him do what Donald Trump does, because he will always fail. He will always make the wrong choice. He will always fuck himself over. And that's what's happening. And that's why when people say to me, oh, he's going to win the election in November. No, he's not. He's won one election in 2016, and that was probably actually rigged. Since that time, he has won nothing. He's done nothing but lose over and over and over again. Had it been anybody else, they would have kicked that guy to the curb or that woman to the curb if he kept producing the kind of losses that Donald Trump has. It's just that Donald Trump is loud and a certain amount of stupid people think he's the great guy, so they stick with him because they don't want to piss off the base. Well, that base is becoming smaller and it's becoming less valuable. And when Donald Trump loses it all, then you will see the Republicans kick him to the curb. It may not be till after the election, but it'll probably be before that because, as I say, I don't think he'll make it to the nomination. And at that point, they'll have to step away from him. He just, like I say, will be a puddle. He'll be an oil spot in the Republican Party, and they'll have to step over him and try to pull together something to not look stupid because they can't grab anybody that would garner enough interest to actually win in November. Even if they get somebody other than Donald Trump, there's a likelihood that all of Donald Trump's supporters won't vote. So the presidential election will be easily won by Joe Biden, and all the down ballots will get fucked over too because Donald Trump's base will not vote. It's not going to go well. I don't even know why people are scared because there is no way out on this. There's just no way out. If you look at it logically and without emotion, he's got everything against him and nothing going for him. Nothing. Not a thing. All right. We are going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.